This is Mo Bashir for The Hook. Delighted to be joined by Sean O'Hagan. Sean, a lot of people might know you because you've trained Josh Warrington, you're obviously his father, but you also trained quite a lot of fighters. We were speaking a little bit off camera, and some of the things you were telling me were quite interesting, and I think, yeah, it'd be good to get your perspective on how like boxing training works. So we were talking about like building a game plan for fighters. Obviously, you've got 5 or 6 different fighters, and they all have different attributes, and the way in which they fight are different to each other, different weight classes, etc. How much of like the I guess how much emphasis is put on planning and tactics and preparation when it comes to a fight camp 8, 12 weeks out?
Yeah, I think emphasis straight away. A fighter obviously needs base fitness. I would say it's about 90% planning, tactics, fight strategy, training techniques, and just generally how you're going to approach your fight. So yeah, it's quite a lot of emphasis. These are the parts that a lot of people don't see. What they see is a fighter step in ring on fight night. He's obviously fit, he's ready to go, and they just see a fight, but there's an awful lot more behind the scenes that goes into it.
And then, like from when you first started to now, there's been a lot of advancement when it comes to like nutrition, when it comes to recovery. How have you seen it like evolve from when you started to now?
Oh, the contrast is it's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I think when I first started, and it was a case of getting them fit, getting them strong, it's changed full circle now. We've got nutritionists, we've got strength and conditioning, we've got reflex exercise. It's almost scientific now. Particularly with the nutrition side, it's big business now. Supplements, even psychologists. I've seen it go full circle. It's really, really complex now. So yeah.
Has it changed the way you've worked with a fighter? And do you think maybe like I guess there's that balance that you need to have of because quite a lot of what happened in the old what happened previously seemed to have worked. Like if you look at fundamentals, it comes down to running, comes down to strength and conditioning, etc. Do you think maybe it's flipped too far the other way and it's got too scientific?
Well, I don't say that it's gone too far the other way. I mean, like I said, when I first started, it used to come down to hard graft and fight itself being dedicated. Changes that I've seen are now it kind of takes a little bit of pressure off us because fighters now feel the need to go get a strength and conditioning coach, feel the need to go get a nutritionist, feel the need to go get somebody who deals purely with reactions. So it's actually taking a little bit of pressure off it. It kind of leaves us free to concentrate on tactics and fundamentals of boxing. But yeah, the contrast it's amazing, massively different now to when I first started.
And then, what is an ideal camp for a fighter going into a fight, and how do you make sure they stay ready on the off season?
I think with this day and age with boxing, I don't actually believe that you have camps as such. I think as a professional fighter, you realise that it's your job. You know that phone can go now at any time. I'll give you an example. Maxi Hughes, he's always in the gym. He's always keeping fit. At a state where if we do get a short notice fight, we can pick. It's not really a camp. He can simply pick his training up, 2 or 3 weeks of intense training, and he's ready to go. I think that's the way it's gone now. We don't get that luxury anymore of having 12 weeks and 16 weeks and months of notice. So I think it's in a fighter's interest to always be at a state where he's ready to just kind of up the intensity and turn it round in 2 or 3 weeks.
How much of like how much of the fighting is actual boxing technique versus fitness? Like is it 20% fitness, 80% boxing? How do you manage the two?
I think with boxing, it was once worked out. I don't know where it actually came from. It could have been the Institute of Sport, and they worked out that boxing was 70% aerobic and 30% anaerobic. that kind of gives you an idea of what state you've got to be in. You do have to be fit. You've got to be fit, no doubt about it. You need that bit of strength with you. But I think a lot of it comes down, the majority of it comes down to technique and fundamentals. You can never get away with kind of ignoring your fundamentals and your technical stuff, you know.
Talking about Josh Warrington, obviously, just a little word on him because I guess he's sort of like the embodiment of someone who like really looks after himself and really dedicates like himself to the gym, himself to the craft. Just a word on him and how well he's progressed over the years.
Yeah, I mean, as you know now, Josh is retired. Excuse me. But we've got to remember he's been at it 18 years as a professional. He's not been gifted that. He's not had the luxury of having kind of fights to build him and easy fights and picked fights. You know, he's come through the hard way where English, British, Commonwealth, European, 2 IBF world titles. And as you know, he retired after his last fight with Lee Wood. But superb athlete, consummate professional, always kept himself fit, always in shape. He was in that good a shape that he was actually the most tested athlete in Great Britain. Sometimes tests on an almost daily basis, you know. A little bit unfair, really, because never any indication that he'd done anything untoward, you know. So, but yeah, just dedicated, likes keeping himself in shape, likes the training element. And I think that's the aspects of boxing that he's going to miss. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. We'll have to let the dust clear and see where he goes from there.
And then the psychological impacts as well. Like obviously you mentioned working with fighters, working with psychologists. Over the years, do you think that's an important aspect that could be the make or break of a fighter? Their mental, the way they think mentally.
Absolutely mental. I think it plays a massive part. It plays an absolutely massive part. You can have everything. You can have the fitness, you can have the conditioning, you can have the punch power. Mentally, that's one obstacle that you can't pretend you've got. It's the mental aspect of it, you know. And I do worry about fighters when they retire or when something that's been their life for the last 20 years, plus not just as a professional but as an amateur as well. So 20 odd years. And it all comes to an end, boom, comes to a grinding halt. How do they deal with that, you know? Yeah, I think mentally you've got to be mentally prepared for retirement, I think.
How do you deal with that then? Like, what I guess what are some of the things? I don't know if any fighters watch this, but what are some of the things that young fighters can do to maybe prepare for a life after boxing? And I guess also adding to that, how much of their sort of young career today should they devote to developing things outside the ring so they can go back to it after? What's the balance there?
I'm a firm believer in boxing. As good as you are, whatever you win, I think boxing has got to be secondary. I think your education as a young man, I think it's got to be drilled into these kids. I do like the idea of academies, such as Joe Gallagher's, I believe, has set one up, and various other outfits have set them up, where they can go complete the sixth form studies, they can do the college, and they can roll it alongside the boxing. I think that's massively important. I think it needs more investment in that. I think that goes some way towards having something when the boxing career's peaked and they're on the way down and then they finally stop, that they've got something to fall back on. They're not reliant on boxing. I think that is one area. I think that would help some way towards, if they knew that they had something to fall back on when they finished boxing. I think that would go a long way to easing the worry, to be honest with you.
It's quite interesting you say boxing should come secondary to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Josh had a profession before boxing, and it's still there now for him to go back to. Boxing's been good to him. He's come out of it. Okay. So he's got a little business as well as the boxing. So he'll be fine, you know. But I think there is a big void, isn't there? There's a massive void to be filled when it's been your life. It'd be like me just stopping tomorrow. What do we do? You know, buy a fishing rod, buy a dog, walk the dog. You know, it's one of those. So I think the more emphasis should be placed on what a fighter does when he comes towards the end of his career.
And then obviously we're here in Dublin ahead of a big fight between Maxi Hughes and Pierce O'Leary. Just a word on that and what you think we can expect on Saturday.
I mean, what you can expect on Saturday is a massive upset. As you know, we've stepped in for Matt Chamberlain, who suffered an injury or illness. We've took this fight at, excuse me, we went off of this fight just over 2 weeks ago. We accepted because going back against what I previously said in this interview, Max has kept himself in shape. He's kept on with everything, ready to pick things up at short notice. That's exactly what we've done here. I think they're kind of a little bit disillusioned in that they're bringing Maxi Hughes in. He's 36. He lost his last fight. He's also coming up in weight. I think what they're trying to do there is gain a little bit of an advantage. May all backfire for him on Saturday night because Maxi Hughes is a consummate professional and he's ready. He's ready to go regardless of who's in front of him. You know, Maxi Hughes turns up Saturday night. Massive, massive upset.
You mentioned his age, and there seems to be a trend going on where, you know, you got Chisora Wilder fighting in their 40s. You've got Usyk continuing to, you know, to beat everyone in front of him in his late 30s. Do you think like a lot more boxers are going past that, and also as well, like when it comes to training load at the start of their career, do you think a lot of fighters maybe burn themselves out too early?
Yeah, I do. I think there were a massive trend of turning professional at 18. They were fighting 4-rounders on small hall shows, domestic promoters snapping them up, guiding them through with easy wins, getting them journeymen. All of a sudden then, 11, 12 fights, they're fighting for titles. It's not really traditional way, is it? You know, but it seemed to be a trend for a while. And then they were all done by the time they were 30 years of age. I think now fighters are going on longer. You've got Anto Kakachi. I mean, you've still got Lee Wood. You've had Josh that's literally just retired. You've got Maxi now. I think what we're doing now is that things have, again, they've gone full circle where these are fights that the public here, the domestic public, want to see. Cracking night, this, for Queensberry. And this as a neutral boxing fan. I mean, you've got John O'Carroll on this bill. John O'Carroll's fighting a young lad there in Murphy. It's an absolutely cracking card, is this. And some of these fighters are not young men, you know. They're not young men, but all real good fights. All really good fights. And I think, like I say, this is the way boxing's going. They're producing fights now that the public, the domestic public, wants to see. This is sold out, this card here. This card in Dublin sold out. Massive boxing city. Ireland itself, genuine boxing fans. I love it here, you know, so Maxi Hughes fighting at short notice was an excuse for me to come here.
One of the things you mentioned Ireland, and one of the things that I've seen with the boxing calendar is that the last fight in Saudi was in December, and since then I don't think they've announced any new fight cards in Saudi, and we're in, what month are we in? March, and all the fight cards that are coming out appear to be more like UK based. Do you think that's good for boxing, and do you think, like, you know, it'll help the small hall promoters coming through?
I'm not sure, you know, because it seems so. This I don't know a great deal about them, the overseas outfits. I think that now cards like this, cards like, you know, Frank Warren's putting on now, cards that Eddie Hearn's putting on now, it's kind of going full circle. They joined together. There were all this big money being thrown all over the place. There were all these big, massive names. But what were happening to these shows? That seems to have slowed down a little bit now, doesn't it? Then you've got Dana White stepping in with Zuffa boxing. Come on, I mean, listen, you could have found a better name than Zuffa, couldn't you? Oh, it's to fight for a Jaffa belt. Zuffa belt, Jaffa belt, I don't know. Nobody's interested. People are interested in this. They are. I mean, the productions are fantastic. I think it's kind of this thing with Turkey and Saudis and Riyadh and everything else. Yeah, the big fights, they can pay for best big household names. Do you really want to watch them? and pay big money for it? Or do you want to watch these good, honest fighters, you know, promoters that are very experienced in productions and promotions? I like these. I'd much rather watch these builds than watch the big Riyadh season builds, to be honest with you. And the Dana White thing, I've really no interest in Jaffa boxing. It's, you know, really.
I mean, with Dana White and Zuffer, it seems like they've gone down the UFC model of you know, like keeping it really sort like, I guess, keeping it all in with one organization. Zuffer sort of controlling external influences from coming in. Like they're sort of really trying to keep it in house. You've seen it with, like, you know, the shorts that they're wearing. It's just all the same. It's just, I guess it loses a bit of character.
Well, I think so. I think they're kind of following a trend out there, and they're losing their identity as well. I mean, they're on about these belts. We don't want to acknowledge these sanctioning bodies now, but they've added another one. You know, listen, it doesn't really make sense, does it? It kind of contradicts what you're speaking up against, doesn't it? Really, we don't like all these different belts, so we're just going to have one. So we'll add another one. Yeah, come on. I mean, that production that went on last week, Jail Pattaya, terrible production. Las Vegas, it could have been a working men's club in the middle of England, couldn't it? You know, I thought it was very, very poor. You've got Conor Benn now fighting, is it Regis Prograis? What's all that about? You know what I mean? Clean up first, clean up at home. You know, I don't think they're doing it any favours, but that's only my personal opinion. So before anybody starts slagging me and all, they do, then only my opinion. Whether anybody agrees with me or not, it's up to them. But no, it's not for me. That.
And then just one final one, because I think people are heading out. What's one advice to a young fighter coming through now that is absolutely like imperative to them succeeding, do you think?
Work hard. Be dedicated to it, 100% dedicated to it. You've got to remember, get your just rewards, get what you deserve, because it's a very, very short career, and prepare for life after boxing.
Sean, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.